So I want to welcome everybody to our celebration of Consumer Action's 50th anniversary. And to kick it off, I actually would like to play a short video from Consumer Action's founder and CEO.
I'm Ken McEldowney, Executive Director of Consumer Action. I'd like to welcome you to our 50th anniversary. When Kay Pastor, our founder, and a few volunteers started Consumer Action in 1971, they protested high food prices, defective cars, and educated consumers on banking and drug prices. In 1976, we held our first fundraiser. Robert Redford was raising money for his national nonprofit and local groups with premieres of all the President Men in cities across the country. Consumer Action was picked to be a local organization in San Francisco. He flew to San Francisco on his last stop to promote the film. When we picked him up at a private airport, there was a bit of panic when two men with leather jackets and sunglasses got off the plane. We had no idea which was Redford. Luckily, he walked over and introduced himself. We drove him back to our offices, which were in a rundown section of San Francisco. As we walked up the alley, we had to step over drunks asleep on the sidewalk. Redford commented it was an interesting neighborhood. We raised several $1,000s for the film. I've been told to keep my comments short, so I'm going to skip the next 45 years. This brings us to our 50th anniversary celebration tonight. I want to thank our past and present staff, board members, and funders for Consumer Action's highly successful educational and advocacy work protecting consumers over the decades. We work to advance consumer literacy and protect consumer rights in many areas, including credit, banking, privacy, insurance, healthcare, and utilities. The fundraising for the 50th anniversary and convening shattered all previous fundraising events, and we did it without Robert Redford. Now I'd like to turn the mic over to Tony Williams of Comcast.
All right. Well, it's always good to hear Ken. Sad that he was not able to join us here in person, but I know that he's here with us in spirit. And, huge thanks to the entire Consumer Actions team, Linda, Carol, Ruth, for all of the support that they've done to put this event together, as well as to my co-chair, Cleo. Thank you so much for all of your work. So Ken said that he was going to skip and make his video short, but I think he did that so that I could then speak for a long time about Consumer Action. So I'm going to give a little brief overview of Consumer Action on Ken's behalf. For 5 decades, Consumer Action has advocated for and empowered consumers, especially low and moderate income and limited English-speaking consumers, helping them to understand how vital it is to improve one's consumer literacy and to take part in grassroots advocacy to improve and protect consumer rights. Among the free tools it offers are multilingual educational guides, complaint referral hotlines. I need English help, clearly. Scam alerts, a Take Action communication center, and timely consumer newsletters, including the popular Scamgram. Consumer Action maintains strong ties to a national network of about 6,000 community-based organizations so that it can reach underrepresented consumers via the community organizations they know and trust. It offers these community groups training, webinars, and multilingual publications with up-to-date information and pressing financial and consumer issues. I think that's on versus with, but now it is, Consumer Action, we all love this organization. That's why we're here to celebrate them. And so it's now my pleasure to turn it over and to introduce Richard Cordurae, the Chief Operating Officer of the Federal Student Aid at the U.S. Department of Education. He's working to protect student loan borrowers, and he was formerly the first director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and himself was an initial recipient of Consumer Action's Consumer Excellence Award in 2016. Tonight, he has graciously agreed to present our 2021 award to this year's consumer champion, the Honorable Senator Sherrod Brown. Mr. Cordurae. There we go.
Clearly, I haven't worked out all the mechanics of my job yet as I'm carrying my computer around to an event like this. Thank you. I'm glad to be here tonight to announce the recipient of Consumer Action's Legislative Award for Consumer Excellence. As a former recipient of the award myself, I feel qualified to say that tonight's honoree, Senator Sherrod Brown, brings luster to this recognition through years that he's devoted to look out for consumers across Ohio and around the country. Please take a moment to give Senator Brown a round of applause. Where did he go? There he is. Okay. I want to tell a little story about Senator Brown, if you'll indulge me. He and I were on the campaign trail 15 years ago this year. He was running for the U.S. Senate, tough race that he took on very courageously against incumbent senator. I was running for Ohio treasurer. And for whatever reason that year, we got into doing some barnstorming tours where we would get a big bus, and all of the Democratic candidates, we seemed to like each other well enough to do this, would go around together. And some of these days that I just loved, we were doing 6, 7, 8 stops in a day in different county seats across Ohio. And on this day, we were doing that. And after about the second stop, we were all supposed to get back on the bus. And Senator Brown's, he wasn't senator then, he was congressman, but his staff came over to me for some reason and said, "Could you help us? We need help getting Sherrod back on the bus." Because I've seen this so many times. He loves conversing with people and learning their stories and really, just fastens on them. And they were just having trouble getting him to get back on the bus in a timely way. So foolishly, I said, okay, I'll help. So I went over to him at that stop and said, okay, Sherrod, it's time to get back on the bus. And he was good-natured about it, probably a little annoyed as he was deep in a conversation. Anyway, the next stop was a marvelous one of these middle-sized cities of Ohio by the name of Mansfield, which is the county seat of Richland County, which I always found seemed to have a connection to me because I'm rich. But in any event, we stopped at Mansfield and we had another event and we were all talking to people. And then at the end, it was time to get back on the bus. And there was Sherrod deep in conversation, as usual. And I went over and said, "Come on, Sherrod, we need to get back on the bus." And he was talking to a woman whose back was to me. And he says to me, "If you don't mind, I'd like to finish talking to my mother." And I said, "That's it. I'm not doing this anymore." That was the end of that little job of mine. So let me just say, Senator Brown embodies the best qualities of a change maker on so many issues. As chair of the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, he understands that protecting people is essential to overcoming our nation's racial and economic divisions. He has shown his leadership by protecting homeowners from foreclosure and renters from eviction, fighting surprise medical bills, and relentlessly pushing to reform our financial system. And I could go on and on, as many of you know. As many of you know, I can go on and on, but especially about Senator Brown. Senator Brown is also a great defender of the Community Reinvestment Act and is author of the Veterans and Consumers Fair Credit Act. He's taken aim at the disgraceful practices of predatory lenders, especially the way so many people are targeted by unaffordable payday loans, auto title loans, and similar products. Don't get me going. I've watched Sherrod Brown in action for years, and I've learned much from his example. I believe his affinity for consumers stems from his general outlook on society and government that is marked deeply by the belief that everybody counts. We all deserve the same chance to make something of ourselves, regardless of wealth, status, race, or social background. That, to me, is a true Democrat, not in the sense of a partisan political party, but of the fundamental principles that make America special in human history. He is truly a champion of the people. Please welcome Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, the recipient of the 2021 Legislative Award for Consumer Excellence.
Senator Brown, this is very heavy, so I'm just going to rest you here for a minute, and we're going to get a picture with you later, okay?
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Go for it.
thank you, Rich. Thanks. It's an honor to be here. I do remember that story. I remember Rich, and you were annoying actually when you came up to him. But my mom, two years later, when Rich was in running for Attorney General and got elected, and this is why I don't think Rich was at this, but my mother was greeting the Democratic vice presidential nominee in Mansfield when he stopped, and my mom's standing at the bus when Joe Biden comes down the bus, and she says, Senator Biden, or just asked Senator Biden, and I'm Emily Brown, Sherrod's mother, and he said, you must be really proud of your son. She said, Senator, I'm proud of all my sons. So never pick one out. And she saw that side too. My mom was a Southerner. My mom taught me about civil rights. She was not in the majority exactly as a white Southern girl in a small town. And I remember when I was in high school when Brown v. Board of Education was many years earlier, but when the court ordered busing for desegregation. And I remember my mom said, I remember busing when I was growing up. They'd bus black kids past the new white school to go to the inferior black rundown public school, public in quotation marks. And that's how my mom taught me. And Rich saw that in her too. So thank you. And Rich Cordurae, I mean, there is no greater consumer advocate in this town and in this country than Rich Cordurae. I wanted to ask him today. Thank you. And I asked him today because I'd seen this. These work too, right? Okay. Why am I holding that? I'd seen Rich so many times in front of the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee testifying because, Republicans didn't really much like the agency, as you may have realized. And Rich actually testified in Congress more than 50 times. Always playing defense. It was always doing the bank's bidding, what Republicans in that committee. I don't want to sound partisan, but they were, even when Rohit Chopra was nominated to serve in that job, even though he had been confirmed, I believe, unanimously for the FTC some years before during the Trump years, every Republican voted no because they just want to continue to beat up on this agency that saved consumers billions of dollars. And Rich's historical presence there, his presence there is historical in the sense that not just that he was the first one that set the agency and really got it, made it so important and such a terrific advocate, but he also he set the tone for what this agency will be in the future. His successor damaged it, but not irreversibly, because Rich had done such a good job of putting that agency together. Sneha from my office just joined us, taking the place of Jan, who is now back at the Consumer Agency, trained by Rich. That's the relationship that our committee, that she will carry on that tradition that my committee will have with this agency, one of the most important agencies in the federal government. Again, I emphasize how Rich being there in those early years and beating back all the assaults, and they were verbal, sometimes bordering on McCarthyite assaults, that Rich stood strong and never flinched. And he's got way more patience than I do. I mean, I'm not a violent person. I wouldn't have stood up at the committee table and walked over and slugged one of them, but I would have lost my temper. And Rich never did, no matter what they did to him. So anyway, but Rich, thank you. I was thinking about this coming in, and I know my voice grates on people. It's my real voice. I'm not sick. I just talk this way. I don't smoke. And this is a true story. My wife and I were at an event once, and it was a room like this, and people were kind of packed in next to each other. And true story. This was several years ago. And my wife is a very good writer, some of you know, and really quick. Anyway, so I start talking, and this guy standing right next to my wife, he said, true story. He said, God, I hate that guy's voice. And she said, yeah. He said, yeah, when that guy talks, he turns to my wife and said, when that guy talks, it's like fingernails on a blackboard. And she said, really? He said, yeah. And she said, I like his voice. He said, you like it? She said, yeah, I actually love his voice. He said, really? She said, yeah. I love his voice when he turns over in the middle of the night and reaches over and says, I love you, baby. And this is a true story. And this guy just he was gone so quickly. So if I see somebody leave this group really fast, I'll know you're onto something. I want to talk a little, I'm not going to talk really long, but I want to kind of lay out sort of why we're where we are right now in this Biden presidency. And you know, when Biden announced for president, I assume most of you in this room weren't for him. I know the activism in this room, and I appreciate so many of you what you do on housing and so many other issues. And Biden was sort of a middle of the road guy. He really saw the presidency as 2 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. He said he saw it as, let's just return America to pre-Trump normalcy. And that's the way he looked at the world. And then the pandemic revealed things that all of you in this room knew, or almost all of you, structural racism, wealth inequality, income inequality. And Biden began to realize that he needed to be FDR and LBJ, in a sense. And I'm in his office. I mean, I'm not dropping names. I'm not there that often. I don't have any aspirations. But I was in his office early in his presidency, like the second week, with a bunch of new committee chairs. And I looked around the room, and he had busts of Dr. King, of Eleanor Roosevelt, of Cesar Chavez, of Rosa Parks, of Harry Truman, and I'm forgetting one or two others. I don't think those were left over from the Trump years. I didn't ask him, but I'm thinking they weren't. But I said to his chief of staff a few weeks later, I said, you know, this really is potentially an LBJ FDR consequential presidency without the racism of FDR's New Deal, but and he said, yeah, but they didn't just have 50 votes. So it's a challenge, and that's why your activism is so important in moving this country forward. And you know, Biden is what we did with the infrastructure bill, which is very consequential, biggest investment in public transit ever. We're going to thank you. 60,000 buses now fueled by fossil fuel, by diesel, are going to be transitioned into almost 60,000 electric vehicles, a few natural gas, a few hydrogen, but essentially, I mean, all the kinds of things in innovative ways that we're going to do. And then the next stop, and then think what we did with the child tax credit. We've already done that. We don't talk about any of this stuff enough because we're always moving on to the next issue, and that's why Democrats lose, frankly, that we don't talk about the things we do and move them forward. And that's really where we need to go as we stand up on consumer issues, as we stand up on issues that matter in so many people's lives. I mean, look what we did together on the true lender rule. Nobody thought the Senate had not beaten the payday lenders on a Senate vote in 15 years. And we held every Democrat, and we got 4 Republicans to vote with us on getting rid of this rule. And you know, it just simply wouldn't have happened without the activism of all of you in this room. So I'll close with this. Every year I bring to the floor 3 Republican and 3 Democratic senators. I just invite them to do it, and we read from Dr. King's letter from the Birmingham jail. We just divide it into seven pieces and read it. And if you haven't, I assume all of you read it in high school because you're smart, educated, mostly progressive people. And how could you not have read that and Beloved and the other things that you should have read? Anyway, but one of the letter, as you may remember, 1963 from Birmingham jail was a letter that he wrote to the moderate, quote unquote, white ministers that were preaching patience. Dr. King, just slow down. We're for civil rights. We're for voting rights, but not too fast. And, you know, he'd heard that for too many years, as young a man as he was. So he wrote this letter on mostly scrap paper and pieced it together and got it out to the public. And in one point in this letter, the part I always save for myself to get to read on the floor since I organized the group, is where he said, progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. Progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. And it really is because of the activism that we're moving forward in housing. This committee, colloquially, Mike, you know this, has been called the Banking Committee or Senate Banking. Well, the committee's really way more than that, and not done a housing hearing in years. State of Housing had never done a hearing on structural racism as we did, about black codes and Jim Crow and redlining and Trump administration locking in discriminatory housing practices. Never done a hearing on climate change. That's what this committee's about now: banking, housing, and urban affairs, meaning transit. And that's what you're going to see. And we are going to be successful in so many of these issues. The Build Back Better is going to have the biggest housing investment ever in our history. And we're going to do those things because of your activism. It's very close. We don't quite have all 50. You may have read this. There are a couple people that are a little more challenging, but we're going to change this country. And then we're going to go out and spend 2022 talking about making a difference in people's lives. And so thank you for the award. Thank you for all your activism. Thank you.
Thank you. Now bear with us. We'd love to get some pictures. Come on, I know the thing is so heavy. Don't drop it on your toes.
Well, thank you, Senator Brown, for all of the great work you do and for accepting the 2021 Consumer Action Award. One thing I'm going to take away from Senator Brown is the fact that he was able to wear sneakers up here. This is my first time doing a live in-person event since COVID, and I'm definitely feeling the dress shoes here. So it is now my pleasure to introduce a true groundbreaker, Congresswoman Judy Chu. In 2009, she became the first Chinese-American woman to be elected to Congress. Since the end, and she has graciously agreed to join us because of her commitment to consumer protection to present the next award to the National Coalition for Asian Pacific American Community Development, National Capacity. National Capacity is a groundbreaking organization that has been a lead advocate on issues facing low-income AAPI communities and making sure that their voices are heard here in DC and in states around the country. So with that, please allow me to introduce Congresswoman Chu.
Well, how wonderful it is to be with all of you. I'm Congresswoman Judy Chu. I'm the chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, or what we call CAPAC, and I'm thrilled to be joining Consumer Action and all of you here today for your 50th anniversary awards reception. I'm particularly proud to be recognizing the National Coalition for the Asian Pacific American Community Development, or National Capacity, and their amazing work to uplift the Asian American Pacific Islander community. For years now, National Capacity has been working in communities across the country to help keep AAPIs out of poverty, and they've had incredible success. Thank goodness, because there's incredible need. AAPIs are the fastest growing racial group in the country, on track to double to almost 50 million by 2060. But because of hurdles like cultural and linguistic barriers, AAPIs also face glaring inequality. And that's why it means so much to me to have a group like National Capacity in communities across the country, ensuring that AAPIs have the same opportunities to succeed as everyone else, no matter what their English proficiency, immigrant status, or income level. I know this work matters because I've seen the way that AAPIs have been taken advantage of. And I will never forget when there was a woman found walking in front of an auto dealership wrapped in a white sheet with the word cheater scrawled on it. And a reporter stopped and said, "What are you doing?" She said she was protesting because she was a Chinese immigrant who needed a car, went into that dealership. The deal was negotiated in Chinese, but when she went to sign the contract, it was in English, and she did not know what was on it, but she signed it anyway. And it turned out to have exorbitant interest rates and many fees that she never agreed to. She was cheated. And when she went back to get a refund, of course, she was denied. The only thing she knew to do was to wrap herself in the white sheet. Well, that is why I took up her case, and I introduced a bill in the California State Assembly which said that if you negotiate for a car in one language, then the written contract must be in the same language. Thank goodness that was signed into law. And thank you, Consumer Action, because you did honor me in times past for that. But just the fact this bill was needed in the first place shows precisely why a group like National Capacity is so important, especially now. Things have gotten worse for many AAPIs during the COVID-19 pandemic. Misinformation and xenophobia stemming from the virus led to AAPI businesses being amongst the first to close. Also, this created some of the highest rates of long-term unemployment in the country. And making the matter worse, the 30 metropolitan areas with the highest numbers of confirmed COVID-19 cases, like Los Angeles, New York, and San Francisco, are home to 3.6 limited English proficient AAPIs, which means it's harder for these businesses to access the help and support available to other businesses. That is why I am so grateful that National Capacity helped me fight for funding to translate resources from the Small Business Administration into other languages so that entrepreneurs who do business in a language other than English would still have access to the resources that they needed. National Capacity has been such an important voice for these types of issues on the Hill, including just this past May when they took part in a roundtable with Speaker Pelosi, members of the House leadership, members of CAPAC and advocacy groups to discuss the issues of language access and how we can better meet the needs of the AAPI community. And they've been instrumental in the issue of housing. The COVID-19 hotspots where AAPIs tend to be concentrated are also some of the places with the highest rents in the nation, making it harder for AAPIs to stay in their home just when staying home is more important than ever. And so National Capacity helped me to craft a congressional letter that I led with my colleagues, Representatives Katie Porter and Al Green, calling on the Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to look at policies that would help more AAPIs stay in their homes. And in particular, we called for changes to make it easier for limited English proficient housing counselors to be certified so that AAPI communities would have better support. So it's only because we have groups like National Capacity working in our communities, understanding the needs of AAPIs and focusing on the policy solutions that will help them, that we are able to take these actions. So thank you, Seema Agnani, and the entire National Capacity team for all of your dedication and leadership in our communities. I am so proud to present you with the well-deserved 2021 Consumer Excellence Award.
Very heavy. Oh. Steve, can you get one now? Yeah, okay, we'll get it after. Okay, sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. You know, you've been really a champion for our communities for a very long time, and, you know, combating racism and xenophobia for so many years, and really appreciate your leadership and support for all the work that we've been doing. Thank you. I want to thank also Consumer Action for this wonderful honor. You know, we came as a real surprise when we were asked to come join you here today, and means a great deal. You know, National Capacity has been in existence for more than 20 years now, and I helped to form it more than 20 years ago when I was working in New York City at one of our member organizations. So I really accept this award on behalf of the amazing groups in our network and who are across the country and in the Pacific Islands, really working to advance the rights of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. So thank you so much. You know, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, we're a pretty diverse group. You see us fumbling with our language. And because, you know, it is difficult to represent such a diverse group of communities. And so National Capacity, I'm really proud of the work that we do and the coalition we have formed, because we're very committed to really representing the diversity of this community. And I want to thank Consumer Action. You know, when I first came to Washington, D.C. 6 years ago now, your executive director, Ken, and I serve on a number of advisory committees together, bank advisory committees, and he always beats me to asking the question of, are you going to translate into Asian American languages? So, you know, how refreshing to not have to be the one to ask that question. So I want to thank Consumer Action for all the work that you've done to really advance language access for our communities. It's really nice to not have to be the one to say it all the time. So thank you for that. Also in our work, national capacity, because we are one of the few coalitions that works on housing and economic development on the national level, we get asked to weigh in on issues from small business to financial capability to housing to rental assistance. And, you know, it's really by partnering with groups like Consumer Action that we're able to do this work well and help to lead the change that really does need to happen on the national level. As you all know, the COVID pandemic has been extremely challenging for all communities of color, but Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders particularly have faced a new level of xenophobia and discrimination, and it has been very difficult for not only our organizations and the communities we serve, but also for those that are leading our communities. You know, our housing counselors themselves have felt the impact of hate violence and incidences in their day-to-day life. So the challenges that our communities have faced have been very real, and really it's going to take the support of all of our allies to really make advances in addressing the real, racial injustices that exist in this country. But we are very proud to be doing this work in partnership with you all. Make sure I don't forget a few things I wanted to say. Well, I looked at your website before coming here today, and I noticed actually your board chair, Ben Lau, he comes from one of the communities that we work with and has been a part of National Capacity for a very long time. So I'm sorry he couldn't be here today, but he's a community activist in Chicago. And has really done amazing work for our community. So it says a lot that you have appointed him as your board chair. So I want to thank him if he had anything to do with this award as well. And then also want to thank Senator Brown. I don't know if he's still here, but also really appreciate all his leadership. We need that housing, the reconciliation bill, we need it to pass. And so we're ready to do whatever we need to do to make sure that happens, because those resources are direly needed. Asian Americans, as the Congresswoman said, live in some of the highest cost cities. And so our communities are constantly facing the challenges of displacement. Renters are being pushed out. I was on a call with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau just this week, and they were asking me why we haven't seen a wave of evictions. And I said, well, actually, we have seen a lot of evictions, but those happen before those things go to court. Because those who are limited English proficient might actually just leave rather than having to deal with the court system, and so these, really reaching out to these communities and making sure we know our rights and are able to defend ourselves before things get worse is really critical. So anyway, I know we have more honorees. I wanted to just say a final thanks and also recognize my colleague, Nahida Udin, who's here with me today. Nahida, you want to wave? She has also been an amazing organizer in Queens, New York and Brooklyn, New York for many years. So we're very lucky to have her. The rest of my colleagues will hear about this great work when we get back to the office tomorrow. But thank you so much. Really appreciate the recognition.
Thank you so much. Well, we'd like to take some pictures over here.
Thank you, Representative Chu, and congratulations to SEMA and National Capacity. It's a reminder that when we talk about consumer rights, we're really talking about civil rights, because civil rights are not possible without consumer rights, and that's something that Consumer Action has always understood and championed. It's now my pleasure to introduce a good friend, a fellow volunteer, in fact, the MC of last year's Consumer Action Awards, Troy Clare. Troy is the Director of Public Engagement for Instacart, and he is, and he has just been a champion both of the organization, but also of consumers during his time on the Hill, his time at Amazon, his time at Instacart. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce Troy Clare.
Good evening, everyone. I know it's late. Y'all got to have a little bit more energy in that. Good evening, everyone. Great, great, great. As Tony mentioned, I had the pleasure of being the MC last year, but I was doing that from my living room. So it is so exciting to see everyone in person. And I just want to credit Ken and the whole team for being able to bring us together in person. So let's give them a round of applause. Carol and the whole team for being able to do that. Well, I have the honor today of presenting the award to Chris Browning, who is a financial analyst and the creator and host of the award-winning podcast, Popcorn Finance. Popcorn Finance really helps people understand their finances and about the time it takes to, of course, make a bag of popcorn. And so Popcorn Finance really connects its listeners with experts who provide actionable advice that can help us become better spenders, hopefully better savers, as well as investors. And so if you all had the opportunity to talk to Chris as I did, you know that he has a well-suited radio or now podcast voice. But also if you had a chance to listen to his podcast, they are very, very useful and practical. His work is really crucial to consumers, as you all heard today, about the financial challenges folks are facing in the community. And so really having that good quality financial education is important. And so, Chris, that's why I'm proud to present you with the 2021 Consumer Action Media Awards.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for that introduction. That was amazing. Wow, I was just in awe and shock when I got the message that I was going to be receiving this honor. So I just want to say, just thank you so much for the recognition, and it's an honor to be on the stage where so many amazing people have already been honored tonight and over the past 50 years. So, I also just want to say congratulations to Consumer Action, just because it's 50 years of serving the needs of the communities, just the people across the country, meeting them where they are, advocating on their behalf, because so often many of us don't have a voice to be heard. And it's just a push to improve financial literacy and education for all individuals, regardless of where you come from, what you know, what you've experienced, what advantages or disadvantages you had. We all need to know this information. We all need to have the support and structure around us. And this has a special place in my heart because prior to starting the podcast, against my mom's wishes, I went into college as an art major, and quickly found out that maybe that wasn't the best choice for me. I wasn't as passionate as those around me. And also, I graduated college right in the middle of the recession. So it was a really tough time coming out of college. And it was just by chance. I was just so fortunate to be taking a finance class, just filling one of my slots in my schedule. And that's when I realized this information is just so practical and so helpful. And I realized how much I didn't know. There's all these concepts, all these terms that I just had never been introduced to my whole life. My parents were great. They were there for me, but they just didn't have to worry about these things. They didn't have to have this knowledge that now so many of us now have to be prepared for coming out into this world. And so for me, that's when I kind of made that decision to switch over and make that my path and my goal in life. And so for me, my whole passion with all this is to hopefully take these concepts that are so intimidating, it can be so scary for individuals, and hopefully make it something that's approachable, and they can realize they can do this on their own, that they can make changes, they can change their path, they can make different decisions, and they can put themselves in a place that they never thought they could be, just because maybe they've had a rough start, or they haven't had those examples around them to help them feel encouraged like they can do this. So for me, again, I'm just beyond honored to receive this award. There's I really think there's so many of us coming up now, millennials, Gen Z, those coming after them, that we're going to be faced with difficulties and challenges and decisions that those before us didn't have to make. Pensions don't really exist for many. There's a lot of fear over what's going to happen with Social Security. I know so many people in the younger age group just don't even think it'll exist. They just plan as if it will never happen. And so there's all these decisions that we are going to have to make and be prepared for. And I know it just falls on all of us that can help to help and do our part to help provide that information, that support, to help them be in a better place, to help them be prepared for the challenges that they're going to face when they're out there in the real world. So I'm just very happy to play whatever small part I can in all of this. Thank you so much for the recognition. Thanks to my wife for letting me turn a whole room in our home into a studio, makeshift. Yeah, just thank you all. I really do appreciate this honor. Thank you.
When you're done, there's a box. I'd like to take some pictures.
I'm going to introduce you.
Okay, you
So it's rare that, one of the things that is great about hosting the Consumer Action Awards is that you get to introduce people who we're all familiar with. And it is actually a real pleasure to introduce my co-chair and partner in crime in this entire event, Miss Cleo Stamatos. Did I pronounce her?
Yeah,
oh, no, but like Cleo, we all know Cleo. We know her work on the board. We know her work at the National Consumers League, both during the time and then on the board. Just a tireless consumer advocate. She's trying to rush me, but she is one who I think just is so deserving of our praise. So please, a hand for Cleo.
Thank you. It's so nice. I'm blushing. I'm verklempt. It's so good to see so many friends here, and I do love the consumer community. I think we do great work. We do great work, and these are wonderful organizations, so I'm so happy that all of you are here to support our friends, because most of you, I think, are all friends in this community. We're a small group, but we're, like I said, I think we're exceptional. So I'm going to announce everybody who's getting the award, and then I'm going to do short introductions. But Consumer Action is honoring Jason Alderman, Jenny Bacchus, Dave Balto, Susan Grant, Erica Therese I wanted to pronounce her last name correctly. Therese Kirchian, sorry, Erica, and Chi Wu, who are all here tonight, and we'll do short introductions. So you can clap for them now, and also, thank you. And not here tonight, we have Chancella Al-Mansour, Maeve-Elise Brown, Ed Merzwinski. I'm sorry Ed's not here, so I can't make fun of him for liking UConn basketball, and Patricia Sturdivant. So these special honorees are all so deserving, and I'm just going to briefly introduce each of them, and then they're going to come up, and then they're going to say something too, because they all deserve their time and this attention. Our first honoree is communications expert Jason Alderman. Consumer Action first met Jason when he was at Visa, where they worked together on consumer education materials, including a website called Know Your Card. Alderman has changed jobs a few times since then. He's now with Fast, which is a shopping and payment startup. But he's a volunteer on Consumer Action's Corporate Advisory Board and an anniversary event planning committee. With this certificate, we honor him for his tireless dedication to Consumer Action's mission to achieve fairness and financial prosperity for underrepresented communities.
Thank you very much. I'll just quickly say, you all are my heroes. And so to stand among you tonight is really an honor, and I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
let's get a shot. One shot. Perfect.
I know, he's got a great smile. Thank you.
Cutie posture. Okay.
Okay, now this is a friend of mine who I've just gotten to know on the NCL board, Jenny Bacchus. And the Consumer Action DC office met Jenny first when she was the head of strategic engagement at Google. And of course, she did great work there and continues to do amazing work creating educational materials and working with nonprofits and companies and public affairs. I'm just sort of stuttering because she's a force of nature. I also found out part of this is just in her blood because her mother, Jan Bacchus, was a former Vermont state senator. her political experience, her background, the fact that she knows just about everybody in Washington make her a good friend to have. So Consumer Action is so lucky that we can count her among our supporters and our committee members and our friends. So it's my pleasure to present the Special Recognition Award to Jenny Bacchus. Yay. So
And I want to say that Jenny does all this in addition to being a mom.
Yes.
Yes.
Come on, please. Better be in this picture.
One more?
Yeah, I'm sorry I edited that part out.
Awesome,
You're a
girl.
mom too. Which is just
Well, all I want,
I know. God, I should have done that.
well, the only thing I want to say is that this is an honor. I'm blown away by this and I didn't expect it, but I want to say that the Consumer Action staff have been some of the most incredible people I've worked with in 25 years. So I'm dedicating this to Linda and Ruth and Ken and Audrey and everybody else who's worked here tonight. This organization is a force. They never forget who they are. I remember Linda asking me questions at Google that made me cry, that were so right. And they that's what it is. It's accountability. And it's accountability, but it's kindness and empathy and warmth. And I'm just so honored. Thank you.
I'm sorry Linda made you cry. I was going to say, well. So our next honoree is David Balto, who's being honored for his public interest advocacy to protect competition. As policy director at the Federal Trade Commission, David played a critical role in litigating government enforcement actions, beginning the agency's pharmaceutical enforcement program, which we know has saved consumers millions and has helped establish vital legal precedents when he was there as well. When he left the FTC, no one said that you could create a public interest antitrust practice, but David proceeded to do just that and prove them all wrong. In his practice, he has been representing consumer groups, including Consumer Action, unions, medical associations, small businesses, challenging anti-competitive practices, and helping to stop anti-competitive mergers in health insurance, pharmaceuticals, beer, so all of us can toast to David for that, and many other markets. When consumers, unions, and public interest groups need help, they know who to call, and that's why we're honoring David Balto tonight.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
I'm so honored to be here today and receive this award. You know all the other aspects of consumer action and how they're vital in different areas, but when it comes to top-rate antitrust advocacy, they're always there for us. They're always there for you. And I know when I have a problem, all I have to do is pick up the phone and Linda Sherry will be there helping me in whatever advocacy we're doing on the Hill or before the agencies. I want to thank my wife and son who supported me during my years of advocacy and my practice, and especially to one practitioner, Robert Skitol, who is really a vital guide to me. I thank Consumer Action so much for being a trusted, wonderful partner in the work we do to protect consumers. Thank you so much.
One picture.
Oh, okay.
Come up here, let me pictures.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Oh, well, this is another friend, Susan Grant. I wish I could tell you all the fun stories. She's just fun to hang out with. She also collects Barbies. But we're not here to honor her for that. We're here to honor her as Director of Consumer Protection and Privacy for the Consumer Federation of America, where Susan has influenced policy in so many areas of consumer rights. She's just a staunch ally. She's generous with her time in preparing documents and herding cats in many of the coalitions Consumer Actions works in. And she's not afraid to mete out pointed criticism of corporate practices when warranted. I'm sure you've made some people cry. We have nothing but plaudits for her impressive achievements as a leading privacy advocate, a champion of consumer rights, and a faithful ally in Consumers Action work to empower consumers. Susan, it's an honor to present you with this award.
You deserve it, Missy. Oh, hello. Okay.
So, this isn't the award ceremony where I get the check for $50 million that I won in the Canadian lottery?
Your check didn't clear.
Oh, maybe it's next Tuesday. Anyway, I'm just so honored to receive this award in the company of such great consumer advocates and from an organization that I've admired for so long. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're more than welcome, Susan. Really good.
Okay. So, born and raised in a small town outside of Mexico City, Erica Therese Kirkjian, I'm so sorry, because Stamatos people would mispronounce.
Here too.
Oh,
At least pronounce it.
okay, I'm going to get you baklava or something, I'm sorry. Is the founder and executive director of Haven Neighborhood Services, a nonprofit financial and housing counseling organization in Los Angeles. A loyal community-based partner, she has helped with numerous consumer action-produced trainings and as an expert resource. We applaud her tireless efforts to improve financial opportunities for low and middle income and moderate income consumers and individuals and families. She's designed effective financial and housing programs, and she's helped advance economic opportunities for underserved communities. And she's so deserving of this recognition. It's my honor to present this award. Thank you, Erica. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So when I started this work, I didn't think that we get awards. You know, coming from Mexico at 17, not speaking a word of English, and coming to a country where you're lost. I know it's. I wasn't gonna. Why am I crying? Well, because I think, you know, it is because coming from very humble beginnings where there's sometimes no food on the table. My mom came to the States as an immigrant, left me at 3 months old in Mexico, and knowing that we can achieve, we can do something for our communities, right? You know, and having the humble beginning, that's what I do. Senator Brown says, because everyone matters, because I matter as a child, because I struggle as a child. I struggle. I have some sort of disabilities, right? That I have to struggle, and I'm not perfect. And but I also have to, you know, say that, you know, anybody can do what they put themselves to. Those that know me know that I work very hard because I really care for everyone in my community, because I care to make a difference, because I see the struggles in my community. But I wouldn't be doing this without my husband. When I married him, he told me, do whatever you want to do. You don't have to worry about bringing money to the house. I say, yay. So I started Haven Neighborhood Services. He helped me pick the name because he says, you know, I came to live in Los Angeles where I met people from all over the world. So we called it Haven because everybody in need, everybody low income, moderate income individuals needed help. Our focus is just those that need help. And also, when I read the label of Shaping the Future, Honoring the Past, Consumer Action has been very instrumental in Haven's success because they have supported us to support our clients. We couldn't have done it without you. We couldn't have done it with all the staff. You all have been wonderful in supporting us and getting us involved. All the consumer rights that I had no access to because I had no connections, because I just went and one day started Haven Neighborhood Services. And I had to lean a lot on you to help me do the trainings, to take their materials of financial education. They have translated in Spanish. They had brochures that we were able to give them to our clients at no cost, and they would send me brochures, and we would bring them to our workshops. They would save me, help clients out of predatory lending practice by just making a phone call and connecting us with attorneys that would help us. How do we do that at this little nonprofit alone? So we needed their help. So thanks to you, you have Shaping the Future.
Haven is a little mighty office, but now we have a satellite office, as they call me a parachute, because every time they offer me to come and do a workshop, I see a space and I'm like, Haven can be here. So we set shop there. But yeah, so thank you everyone. It is a team effort. Like, I cannot do this alone. I just show up and do the work that everybody else kind of supports us. Another thing, I have a mighty staff now that I have throughout the years met with the work that I do, the networking that I do, and they come and join us to work at Haven. So thank you all. This means a lot because it's just the beginning of Haven. We're right here. We have to be here. So thank you.
That was wonderful. I think, it is emotional to do this kind of work because you're making a difference in people's lives. So it's an honor.
It is emotional.
We have one more, Chichiwu.
Right.
Okay, and then you can take over. So I'm very excited to give this award to Chichiwu, primarily because I follow her on Twitter and she's awesome. If you don't follow her on Twitter, you need to follow her on Twitter. She didn't know who I was until I said, I'm Consumer Mom. I retweet her all the time because she's the best. But I do. I love it. But I will just say there's more. We're not just honoring her for her Twitter game. Consumer Action staff of lay advocates relies on the expertise of many of the talented attorneys at the National Consumer Law Center. Consumer Action staff have Boston-based Chichiwu on speed dial. Given her deep expertise on fair credit reporting, credit cards, refund anticipation loans, and medical debt, Wu shows tireless dedication to reforming the credit reporting system, expanding access to credit, and protecting low-income consumers from predatory financial services and debt collectors. And for that, and for much more, we salute her.
So I'm really overwhelmed and honored by this award. And I have to say a few thank yous. First of all, of course, to Consumer Action, not only for the award, but for the 50 years of advocacy and activism and allyship. You guys are on my speed dial whenever I need support. Ruth, Linda, Ken, Audrey, and others. I also want to thank my colleagues because, as you heard, the expertise, it's not just me. This award is for the whole organization. And so I want to shout out everyone from our newest advocate, Alpha Taylor, to, of course, the head of our DC office and associate director, the amazing Lauren Saunders. You deserve this as much as I do, probably more. And my last thank you is to all the consumer advocates in this room. And there are a lot of you, and if I start rattling off names and organizations, I'm going to miss someone. So I don't want to do that, but I want to say, this work is hard. And so it really matters. It's so important that we do it together, that we have so many of the folks in this room. Because it's hard. We're up against moneyed interests. We're up against banks and credit bureaus. But our cause is just. And we're really making a difference in the lives of ordinary, everyday consumers. So the biggest thank you is to everyone in this room who's a consumer advocate. Thank you for doing the work.
All right. Well, I think at this point, my job is to first to thank our sponsors. So let me start and thanks AT&T for hosting us in this fantastic space. And of course, to Amazon, Google, TrackPhone, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Comcast, and Facebook, now known as Meta. Thank you all. As well, thank you to all of our other donors, and on behalf of myself and Cleo, this year's co-chair, I just want to give a shout out to our fellow committee members who helped make tonight so special. Jason Alderman, Jenny Bacchus, David Balto, Susan Dingelman, Sam Jeffries, Rebecca Mond, and Matthew Smith. Thank you, guys. And you should all have champagne or have had the opportunity to have champagne. I'll pretend like I have some. And let me invite the Consumer Action staff. Thank you. Up here to join me. Linda, Ruth. Is Anna here as well? Anna. And Nelson, please come up here and join me for this.
Did everybody get champagne? Linda?
Wonderful. So then, on behalf of us all, would like to toast Consumer Action on their 50th anniversary, and here's to 50 more. Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Hello, Consumer Action, and happy 50th anniversary. Over the last 50 years, we have made a lot of progress in leveling the playing field for American consumers. And thanks to the advocacy of many of the people who are here today, along with consumers, civil rights, labor, senior, and community organizations all across the country, 10 years ago, something really amazing happened. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau opened its doors. Now, very few people in Washington thought it was possible ever to have such an agency. Even after the worst financial crisis in generations, people were skeptical that we could overcome the full force of the banking lobby and their friends in Congress, and that we could actually create an agency that would work on behalf of working families. But we did it. And look at what that little agency has done in just 10 short years. It's forced the banks and financial institutions to return nearly $13 billion directly to people they cheated. It's fielded more than 2.3 million consumer complaints. It's put in place common sense protections for American service members and vets. And the part we can never quite measure is that over the past decade, millions of people have not been cheated, all because some financial outfit with a sleazy idea looked around and realized there's a watchdog ready to bite. The creation of the CFPB teaches us that we can make government work, not just for the wealthy and well-connected, but we can make it work for everyone. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being a part of this. Keep up the great work and happy 50th birthday, Consumer Action.
The law creating the CFPB's consumer complaint system was a critical reform. People all across the country use the system to get real help and an actual response from financial companies. In many cases, it's led to big refunds and real change, since enforcers across the country can use it to spot trends and stop systemic abuses. I want to thank Consumer Action for all of its work to make it a success.
I want to say happy 50th anniversary to Consumer Action. We know from history that you've been so needed, and we know that we still need you for many years to come. So congratulations again on your 50th anniversary. And I personally am so glad that you've been around for so long and will be around for many more years in the future. Thank you and congratulations again.
I'm David Lazarus with the Los Angeles Times. I've got to say, over the years, Consumer Action has been a steady and reliable source of consumer information and consumer advice, and they've been a trusted resource for me. And unlike me, they're not getting any grayer. Happy birthday, guys.
Congratulations to Consumer Action for 50 fabulous years of work on consumer empowerment. Consumer Action has brought the voice and experience of the consumer to policy battles for fairness and financial prosperity, and has brought critical information to consumers about their rights and how to protect themselves. Consumer Action bridges that gap between ordinary people and our policymakers. Congratulations on decades of great work with more to come.
Today, I really would like to take a few seconds to do a special wish for my good friends of Consumer Actions. We have a very long relation and partnership for more than 10 years with Consumer Action, and I'm a first-line witness of the so many good benefits that we obtained from this partnership through the education programs, through the training that they provided for the advocacy on the specific issues that affect mostly low-income families and immigrant families in our communities, for the wonderful publications that we received totally free of charge in different language, including the Arabic and Spanish, that is the mostly community that we serve, and especially for the way that they teach along the time to empower our staff and our communities to move forward on life in this country. So I'm really, really glad for all the benefits that we receive from Consumer Action. And on behalf of our community, on behalf of our Cornerstones staff, I really would like to say, Consumer Action, happy anniversary, and receive 50 and so many more years in working for the good of this community.
Happy 50th anniversary, Consumer Action. I'm so delighted to take part in this momentous occasion with each and every one of you. We have come a long way in protecting consumers over the past 50 years. It was a decade ago when, in the wake of the subprime mortgage meltdown, we realized consumers needed a watchdog to protect them from unfair, deceptive, and abusive acts and practices in the financial marketplace. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was created in the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, and it was a crowning achievement that eliminates fraud, deception, and ripoffs. As chairwoman of the House Financial Services Committee, I'm so thankful to have partners like Senate Banking, Chairman Sherrod Brown, and everyone at Consumer Action who are essential in this ongoing fight to protect consumers, and the CFPB a constant target for obstruction. So I thank you for your work, and I look forward to celebrating even more victories we will win together on behalf of consumers in the months and years to come. Thank you all.
Consumer Action, happy birthday. 50 years? You wear it well. Ken, Linda, Ruth, and everyone else there, you have made San Francisco and our entire world a better place to be. Thank you very much. Happy birthday. I love working with you guys.
Congratulations, Consumer Action, on 50 years of hard work and dedication to our consumers. On behalf of NeighborWorks Orange County, we applaud your work in the advocacy arena, capacity building and training, and dedication to the important work that we all do as nonprofit partners. On behalf of NeighborWorks Orange County, congratulations on 50 years and to 50 more.
Very few organizations in America have lasted for 50 years, let alone brought about so much change for the better. Congratulations to Ken McEldowney and the amazing Consumer Action team on 50 years. You continue to be a model organization that we can all strive to emulate. Your success is remarkable, and we are so proud that you are a member of the Consumer Federation of America. Happy 50th, and we consumers look forward to you protecting us in every language for the next 50 years.